We're about to start our webinar for land trusts, and I'm super excited for today's event. It's led by our ambassador, Ross Burnett, and we're really excited to have amazing guests from Westchester Land Trust who used felt for visualizing land ownership in the region and really breaking down the work that the Land Trust is doing. And we have a really exciting presentation from Gentian and Jess and Ross. But before we go, I wanted to share some housekeeping items. And we have this map. The link will be shared in the chat very shortly. But for us to really make sure that no questions are left out and we see all the questions, let's just document them here on the map. Everyone has access to this map. You can type here. So if you have a question for our speakers, or if you have a question about using felt in general, you're welcome to post it here. And I also organized some helpful resources here. We have a complete guide to felt on our YouTube channel, a deep dive into Westchester Land Trust. It's a case study on our blog, another case study about another nonprofit in Oakland, and we have a map gallery. And also, if you want to follow Ross and his presentation, you can check this presentation, this Google Slides, and just follow along. So it's a resource as well for after the event if you want to revisit it. So with that, I'm excited to pass it over to Ross. Please take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, really excited to be here and joined by Gentian and Jess. So let me share my screen for a short presentation. Can everyone see that all right?
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, we'll start with just a quick round of introductions. So yeah, my name is Ross Burnett. I'm a felt ambassador. During my day job, I work at a nonprofit called One Tree Planted, where we plant trees around the world. I found out about felt probably about a year and a half ago or so, and started using it immediately for work at One Tree Planted, and then also just in my personal life. You'll see a few examples later in the presentation for maps that I've made. And I'm just really excited because there hasn't been quite a tool like felt, and it just really hits a lot of my mapping needs. And so I started a kind of side project a few years ago called landtrustmaps.com, where I would make maps for land trusts. I made 2 maps for 2 land trusts in Connecticut. And then Jess Parker reached out, I think about a year ago, or was maybe put in touch with me by one of the groups we worked with. And so they were interested in making web maps. I suggested felt. They use felt to make this map. I'll let them talk more about it. So why don't I hand it over to Gentian and then Jess to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ross. My name is Gentian Fallstrom. I'm the land project manager at Westchester Land Trust. So I shepherd new land protection projects from start to finish. And I also supervise our conservation easement monitoring program. And so I actually end up doing a lot of the mapping work here with ArcGIS Pro, creating maps for all kinds of different purposes, whether it's assessing new pieces of land for protection or aggregating some of the work that we've done in specific areas or for specific purposes. So I've become fairly proficient in mapping, but we didn't have a good solution for our website, and that's where felt came in. Jess?
Thanks, Gentian. I'm Jess Parker. I'm the communications manager at Westchester Land Trust. Gentian and I worked very closely on using felt together. But so in addition to the website, I handle all internal and external communications at the Land Trust. And part of what I do includes figuring out how to connect with our audiences, whether that's board members, donors, people who have never heard of us before. And that's sort of how we landed where we are now, because we realized that people didn't know us and didn't know our land. So it's been fun, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
Awesome. Thanks, Gentian and Jess. So just here are the 6 goals we have for this webinar, just to kind of set the expectation. So we want to introduce you to felt, we want to introduce you to the handful of folks on here that are Land Trust fans and map-loving folks. We want to do a case study for how Westchester Land Trust used felt to create their map. Then I'm going to do some just brief kind of hands-on demo of how to use felt. I put together some thoughts on other tools in the mapping space for Land Trust because there's so many. I'm not sure if we have any, hopefully we have some folks on the call that work at Land Trust and would love to hear your thoughts on this. But in speaking to various Land Trusts, in my experience, especially folks that don't have a lot of GIS experience, it's kind of overwhelming because there's lots of different tools. It's kind of changing rapidly. A lot of folks say there's similar offerings, so how do you know which one to choose? So I put together a little table to kind of list out some of the various tools and kind of pros and cons and what to look for. And then honestly, we'd really love to hear from you all. So yeah, put your questions on the map in the chat, and we'd love to strike a conversation and just see if we can support you. I think folks that are into Land Trust are a passionate group of people that love nature and want to protect it. And I found it's just a really great community. So really, we're all really excited to be here and sharing. And thanks everyone for joining and the interest. So starting with what is felt. I really like the felt website, so I'm going to let it speak for itself. Folks can feel free to check it out themselves. It's really easy to sign up. You can log in with a Gmail or another account, but Felt is a pretty young company. I think, what is this, year 3 or so? And it's still evolving and growing really rapidly. I'm based in Berkeley, California, and the Felt office is just down the street in Oakland, which is really exciting. And have had a chance to meet a couple folks in person, and it's just a really great team that is really responsive to feedback. So because it's a pretty young organization, they're still really growing and open to meeting user needs. So I honestly think if we can demonstrate some challenges that the Land Trust community faces, the Felt team is going to be really receptive to, oh, is there a way they can resolve that? Because as you'll see in the presentation, typically there's not one tool that can just resolve every problem, but if there's a more critical mass of certain specific challenges, I think Felt already does a great job, but I think there's an opportunity for it to just keep growing. So we'll hopefully not speak too much for the Felt team on that behalf. Yeah, again, I'm not a Felt employee. I'm an ambassador in part because I made this connection from Felt to Westchester Land Trust and just am a big fan of it. So want to promote it very genuinely. So it's been exciting. So the reasons that I personally, the few main reasons why I love Felt, it's really easy to create a beautiful web map really quickly. This is something that there's a lot of tools that allow you to create web maps, but none of them, in my experience, are as quick and easy as Felt. They've really dialed it in. Their team is like mapping experts from different mapping companies around the world, and they really have the team in place to create awesome software. It's really easy to share the map. So literally during the course of this webinar, without being too distracted from the presentation, you could probably create your first map and share it. Like it could take a minute. So that's pretty exciting, and then really easy to embed that onto your website. And then I also love that it's easy to import and export data. So it's like as easy as dragging and dropping, and I'm going to do one quick exercise live demo later in the presentation where you can just drag on different geospatial data, but also not geospatial data, photos and links and image and just all kinds of different things. You can drag it onto the map, and then it just appears, and it's really easy to interact with. And you'll see from that link that was shared by Anna that it's, you can collaboratively edit this map too, which really can come in handy when you're on a team that you want to all work on the same map together. So I'm going to pass it over to Jess, who's going to talk a bit about why the Westchester Land Trust wanted an interactive map in the first place. And then Genshin will go a deeper dive into the map itself. So yeah, let me pass it over to Jess.
Thanks, Ross. Before I dive into why we wanted the map, I'll just give you a little bit of brief background about what Westchester Land Trust is. So we're located in New York. We were founded in 1988, and we cover all of Westchester County and Eastern Putnam County, which is a pretty big area to cover. We protect forests, farmland, all kinds of different land, and we do it through a couple of different mechanisms. We protect land by outright owning it. We protect it through something called a conservation easement, which is basically a legal agreement that says you can't develop land. And then we also do assisted land deals where we help other people protect land. We have about a dozen preserves that are open to the public for hiking. And then we have a bunch of other preserves that aren't open to the public that just exist for wildlife and plants. We also work with other partners who do sort of like affinity type programs, like stuff that's rooted in food justice, pollinators, pesticide use, fun stuff like that. So we do a lot. And then in terms of why we wanted an interactive map, our previous website was so old, like it was just really, really bad, and we needed to redo it. And we figured, while we're like taking on this gargantuan project, we might as well do it right. And we've always heard people say, like, we don't know where your preserves are. We don't really get what you do since you cover such a large service area. So we decided we need to figure out this mapping thing once and for all. So that involved talking to a bunch of our board members, all of our staff, people who frequent our preserves, and then talking to a lot of other land trusts. And what we figured out was that basically a lot of people want a lot of different things, and there's no simple way to just make that happen. But the top level thing that we heard was that people wanted like a bird's eye view of what we do. So just being able to have a quick snapshot of where we work across the different types of land protection and how they can learn more about it or if they can visit it. That's what actually led me to Ross. Like he mentioned before, I talked to Aspetuck Land Trust in Connecticut, and they said they went through a similar process and then introduced us, and that's how we landed at Felt. But yeah, so we really just wanted to showcase a lot of our work, and it was a little bit of trial and error figuring out how we wanted to represent that visually, and Gentian can speak to like the technical aspect of it. But you know, we had a lot of legal concerns or privacy concerns too, because much of the land that we protect is private. So, you know, if we work with you to protect your backyard, you don't want the outline of your backyard and your address on a map for anyone on the internet to see. So we did have to strike a balance between how much information we want to give out versus how we want to protect the people that we work with. But I think now I can hand it over to Gentian to talk about the more technical details and how that all came to life.
Thanks, Jess. Ross, if you could stop sharing. All right, thanks. So I wanted to start, you know, we do all of our internal mapping through ArcGIS Pro. And so a couple of years ago, we had an internal map that looked like this. And so this shows the different land that we've protected in different ways, but this wasn't the kind of thing that we could share with the public, in part because, as Jess mentioned, we have a lot of conservation easements on private property, and that's not something that we want to make available to the public. And it's just not a great interactive tool. It's not super user-friendly, it's not beautiful. So what we have now is much prettier. But we really wanted to accomplish a few different things with this map. As just mentioned, we have 3 different ways that we really work to protect land through our preserves. That's land that we own outright. And again, it falls into 2 different categories. It's things that places where you can go and take a hike, and places where we own the land, but we really are keeping it pristine and natural for biodiversity. Or maybe it's entirely wetland and there's just no good place to walk. But for whatever reason, that's land that we own, but we do not make open to the public for hiking. And some of the easements, you know, some of them are private, but some of them are actually on land that is owned by municipalities or other conservation organizations. So you may be able to walk there. Same thing with assisted deals. So we found this way to show the different types by color, and then show the level of access based on whether it's an outline or a dot. And so that really gives us a lot of ways to show different levels of information. And one of the things that we were struggling with for those easements that we didn't want to put on the map is how do we convey how much land we've protected? In Bedford, where we're headquartered, we've protected over 1,600 acres of land, but you don't see a lot of dots here. So what we did was create this system where typically these purple dots, they would show the range of the numbers behind them. And I just replaced that with text to try to explain to users when you're looking at this, that these larger purple dots represent larger number of acres protected in each area. So we were really thrilled with how easy it is to sort of zoom in. You can click and get more information. All of this that you see here was created by uploading files from ArcGIS Pro. So there are lots of cool tools in Felt where you can just work within the software to create different visual effects. But this wasn't really what we were going for here. So we were able to use the files, existing GIS files, and upload them. Each time you do that, you do have to make some changes. You want to change the color. You want to change how it's labeled. You want to change the zoom. So when you zoom out, which ones do you see and which ones fade away? There's definitely some tweaking that happens every time you upload a file. But the data that's in the GIS table shows up here. So we were able to have the information that we wanted available for our preserves here, and a direct link to more information about it, and our trail map, so you can get a lot more information that way. But this is something that we just never had anything like it on our website, and it's something that we were able to create on our own with just a small amount of assistance and questions, and the Felt team was very responsive, because as I said, we were doing this all not with like the really cool tools that just pop up when you sign in that Ross will show you later. This is all just putting in ArcGIS Pro files and then tweaking them so that it looks exactly how we want it to look. So if we want to go back to the presentation, I mean, this is over 600 square miles of our service territory, and being able to go in and out and get more information at the local level, where you live, where we are, it really makes a huge difference. And people who aren't familiar with the hundreds and hundreds of places that we've worked to protect over the last 35 years. So.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for showing that, Gentian. So I can share my screen again, and then you can talk about a few of the lessons learned.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, we had a lot of different things that we wanted to show, and we were able to come up with a simple legend, really, using colors and using dots versus outlines to convey a lot of different information. And that those purple bubbles, really, that was kind of a breakthrough, because we were really challenged with how to show land that we can't put on the map, but we want to associate with each municipality where we've done so much work that we just can't pinpoint for people because it's private. And it looks so good, and it's easy for users to navigate, to zoom in and out. The challenge really is how many things that I tweak to get it just the way we wanted it. And that means that every time I upload a new ArcGIS Pro file, if we have a new preserve or a new easement, then we do have to make those tweaks again, make the color right, make the label right, make the zoom right. So I've written up something so it's not hard to do. And once you've done it once or twice, it only takes a couple of minutes. But there are a lot of little steps going into the code that I did to make it perfect. And again, you know, you can never make anybody happy all the time. So what we've created here really serves the needs of our users, and it meets the needs of our board in ways that we felt like we weren't going to be able to do unless we were willing to hire a company that specializes in this and spend many months and a lot of money to get it done. I feel like what we have here is just such a great end product for something that is really possible for people to do in-house without a ton of technical knowledge. I am not someone who has a significant background in GIS mapping and any of this technical stuff. I've learned it on the job, and coming in and working with felt was pretty easy, and the staff was very supportive. So given our limitations, it really did a great job at meeting our needs, and we think that that it's done what we needed to do and then some.
Awesome. It's so great to hear. And it was just to add my kind of perspective on the story. David Brandt from Aspetuck Land Trust reached out, connected me with Jess, and was like, "Hey, can you help?" And I said, "You know what? Why don't you try felt?" And then it feels like a month or two later, they had this map in a good state, moving ahead. And so it was really exciting to see that, and then just happy to show off and share it. So for my portion, I'm going to do a live demo. I'm going to show a few maps that I've made for work and for just my personal life, as you'll see in a link or two here in a second. So I think the feature that got me most excited about felt initially, that I hadn't seen any other tool doing, was this ability to add geotagged photos to a map and have them appear. I'll do a demo of that in a second, but just showing off something for one of our projects in Indonesia. So what is this? So One Tree Planted plants trees in 70 countries around the world, and we work with partners that are doing the actual work on the ground. We're not sending out One Tree Planted staff. And so they share with us shapefiles, boundaries of where they're working, and then they share geotagged photos. The challenge before had been we didn't have a good way of viewing the geotagged photos and the KMLs together really easily. And with felt, you can just very quickly drag on the KML, drag on the photo on the map. The photos appear. Again, I'll show you in a second, but just gonna do a demo of 4 different maps. And so with this one, it was a real game changer. I reached out to the team right away as soon as I saw the announcement, because I had tried to add like 100 photos to the map at once, and some of them weren't geotagged, and it kind of threw some errors, and then the team resolved it, I think that same day or the next day. It was really fun. So this is, again, a dynamic team, super responsive, releasing new features all the time. But this was one that really got me excited. So we can zoom in, and you can see how speedy it is. We can see these trees for this project in Indonesia. So that's the first map. The second one is for a project in Costa Rica. So this is one of my favorite projects. We have a ton of information about it. And one of the things that I loved was how easy it was to add drone data onto this map. As far as I know, there's not other tools where you can just drag and drop a raster like TIFF layer, especially I think each one of these layers, I have 3 layers on this map now, because so this is in an area called the Osa Peninsula in southwest Costa Rica. And it's a really mega biodiverse region. You can see a lot of it is forested. There's a big national park, but there's also a lot of cattle ranches you can see on this side of the peninsula. So you can see this area, historically, this would have been 100% tree cover, but much more of this peninsula actually used to be cattle ranchers, and it's now increasing in forest cover. And so with this map, I was able to add on these drone layers. We're working with cattle ranchers to plant trees around the edge of their property to provide habitat for things like monkeys and jaguars. And so this was a really cool example. And again, so this is a drone layer I've added to the map, and then I've also dropped in this 360 panorama that we can click on to see. So everything's kind of all embedded in one place. So I think 360 drone panoramas are a really powerful, easy to use tool to show off a landscape, potentially interesting for land trust. So this was taken by a tiny drone. Here I am with my colleague in May 2021, and you can zoom in and see these trees were just planted. They're about less than a foot tall. And then what's cool is we're able to watch these trees grow over time. So if I turn on a different layer, so we'll hide this first one. This is what Google Maps looks like for record. This is kind of we're used to really high resolution in Google Maps, but it can't zoom in super close, so we have to add our own drone layer. This was in December 2022, so about a year and a half later, and we can see these little trees starting to grow. Really exciting. And then I just went back 2 months ago and was able to capture another drone data flight orthomosaic, upload this all to Felt, and you can see how these trees are growing along this corridor. And then we can actually see a 360 panorama before and after. So one thing I always love to do is combine different types of perspectives and tools. And so we can see these trees are in 2 years are over 30 feet tall. You can see this car kind of obscured by the trees and how quickly they've grown. And so this is really helpful for One Tree Planted to be able to combine all this different data on the map in one place, easy for tracking and showing and storytelling. So these areas are now going to be able to support different animals moving across a landscape, especially as this fills in more over time. So again, love the ability to just bring in these different data sets. The next version I'm going to share is from one of my favorite land trusts, Darien Land Trust in Darien, Connecticut. So I worked with them a couple years ago to help them build out this map that they also have on their website. And so you can see the different parcels that they have protected around Darien, Connecticut. And this is a cool map. It has some functionality, zooming in, learning about the different sites they have protected, and whether it's accessible. And so we built this map, but honestly, it took like 6 months, well, at least to build kind of this initial model. I co-founded an organization called landtrustmaps.com, but it was a lot of custom code. We were starting this kind of from scratch. There's probably an easier way to do it. We were trying to scale up, but it wasn't cheap or easy to get this thing started. So I wanted to see, what would it look like to build this map in Felt. So just yesterday, a couple days ago, I just in a few minutes kind of put together a basic version of what that map could look like. It's, in my opinion, it doesn't have the same functionality, so it's not 100% apples to apples. We can't click on a property in the sidebar and zoom in. And so you have to, as a land trust, you might ask yourself, like, what's the functionality that's required? But you can still click and learn about the different properties. And I haven't added all the same info yet. You could definitely make this a lot better, but this I literally made in 5 minutes just to kind of show like what's possible. This wasn't, it wasn't possible a few years ago to do something quite so easy. And then I really like how I can also very quickly and easily layer on different types of data. So this is a map that was a PDF that's really easy to geo-reference and then drag and drop onto Felt. And then so we can start to compare this PDF map with the properties that we've geo-referenced and geocoded. And so we can also add on this parcel layer. So I downloaded this from Connecticut Department of the Environment GIS website and was able to drag and drop easily, kind of look and compare how different town boundaries. So just to kind of show you can easily layer on all this different data, figure out what's going to work for your website. And then this is sort of a fun little personal example. I'm a map lover. I suspect a few of us on the call are map lovers, but I actually got married 2 months ago and included this little map. It was at the Berkeley Botanical Garden, and I included this map for all my guests. And so, folks were coming from around the country and a few internationally, and just kind of highlighting some different things they could do around the world or around the Bay Area. And then for the ceremony itself, it was kind of spread across a few areas. I've since recently added this this nice little photo from the ceremony, and then just kind of provide info like where is everything, where are things gonna be happening, where can you park, where where are the different events happening on the day of. And then we had different events over the course of the weekend, and so I just put this quickly together to share with my guests, and all my map loving friends thought it was pretty fun. So those are four maps that I've made just in the past handful of months. All pretty basic, to be honest, like really powerful, but I'm not even scratching the surface of what's possible with felt, for sure. This is sort of the level 1 of the functionality. And so excited to just keep learning and doing more. So I want to do just a probably 5-minute demo just to kind of show people exactly how easy it is. Sometimes demos obviously are at risk of catastrophic failure and slowness, but felt is so easy to use. I feel pretty confident that I can pull this off to show off some of my favorite features. So I'm going to show you just how easy it is to add data and export some data. So felt, the main homepage, quickly, you can just create a new map. And then I prepped a couple sample files to just kind of show how to add some layers onto the map. And so this is from a recent hike that I did, but illustrates this ability to combine geotagged photos with KMLs, a use case similar to One Tree Planted, but this is just sort of a more simplified example. But we can just literally, from my download folder, drag and drop this onto the map. And a KML is just a type of geospatial data similar to a shapefile. And so you can, go to various websites and just, if you type in like boundaries in Connecticut, shapefile, you'll get some stuff that's going to pop up. So this was a hike that I did in Yosemite National Park. I'm going to pull up my download tab again. And then if I want to add in some photos, I can do the same thing. And again, watch, it's quick. This is one of my favorite features. This button pops up. There's metadata within these photos that have information about the lat long. And so if people are taking photos with their iPhone or their Android, oftentimes that metadata is already there. And so it already knows exactly where those photos were taken on the map. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And you can see this is in Yosemite National Park along a reservoir called Hetch Hetchy. I'm going to zoom in and you can see kind of what this landscape looks like, my sweet hiking gear. But yeah, by adding it, this was in May. I love how it just adds directly onto the map and then combines all the different data together. So one feature that I like is this ability not only to import really easily, but also to export. So I can convert this and export it again. So your data is kind of not locked in here. GeoJSON is just another format that's similar, really easy kind of editing, different colors and stroke width and opacity and all this different customizability that makes it really fun to quickly and easily, without a ton of experience, be able to do some map modifications. And so that was the first couple examples: upload, export, geotag photo, embeddable content. This is something you saw on my other map where you can just easily drop in a link. So I have a link here handy that I can just drop in a YouTube link and have it, well, normally I must be doing something wrong. It's a live demo. Oftentimes that'll quickly convert into the little button you can click onto. And so just drop in different types of information. So this access to a library of data sets. So this is a kind of fun one. there's a layer library. You can add your own layers if you want to your team, if there's data sets you're using constantly. And so if you wanted to add some different layers, you could do that. But there's also, they're just a constantly growing data set layer. And so this one was pretty relevant for this quick little demo. This is trails, tracks, and footways. So we can just quickly add that to the map. And you can see it's added into this orange line, this trail network for Yosemite National Park. And not only Yosemite, but like just an incredible amount of information globally. For folks that are not used to maps all the time, this is actually really, really fast for how quickly it's loading and how much data is here. Felt team has figured out how to make this really, really fast and really, really impressive. And so this is a huge amount of data that you very easily have access to in seconds. And then I'm not going to actually do the QGIS demonstration because it's going to take a second, and I've only just learned how to do it a couple of days ago. But I love, there's a add-in, or there's a plugin for QGIS that actually allows you to work on data and processing on your desktop using QGIS, which is sort of similar to ArcMap Esri software, and then just hit a button and then your map is online pretty instantly, which is really, really exciting. And so, yeah, that is pretty much the end of my demo. I'm going to show some information about comparing mapping software, because I know folks have questions. People come to me like, which tool should I be using? Why is there so many? And so like there was the Land Trust Alliance rally conference in Portland within the last week or so. And I know there's a lot of different groups like sharing their GIS software. And for people that don't think about GIS and mapping every day, it's maybe a little overwhelming and confusing. So I've tried to break down what I'm calling these categories of GIS tools, just to kind of help you wrap your head around it. So there's this kind of self-service. If you have GIS experience, you can just do this yourself. So ArcMap, ArcGIS Online, Felt, Carto, QGIS. There's definitely more, but these are kind of the biggest ones from my experience. If folks have other tools you're using, let's make this a sharing and learning session at the end. We're almost going to wrap this up in the next few minutes, and we'd love to hear from you if there's things you're using that you think are also great, or have a question about how this could fit in. And then there's the next step, what I'm calling this developer tools. So, web maps historically have required programming experience, knowing how to use JavaScript, HTML, CSS, combine these different libraries. So Mapbox is one such tool. When Jess initially reached out, they were thinking about how can we use Mapbox, and I'm thinking like, man, that's probably pretty tough if you don't have a lot of programming experience. So they were excited to be able to move over to Felt, which was a lot easier to use. There's Leaflet, there's OpenLayers, there's ArcGIS, different JavaScript libraries. So those are some of the main ones. Then there's what I'm calling these management tools. So there's some great companies creating products. I think the two main ones are Locate and Landscape. These could connect with your Salesforce or your kind of donor management and help you manage different aspects of being a land trust. But they're not, I think at least Landscape has ability to publish web maps, but that's not first and foremost what they're designed for. And so it's not quite, each one of these tools has its pros and cons, I think is a point we want to make. And it's hard for any one tool to do everything. So it's just important to understand what the different tools can do and sort of the limitations and how you might need help. And then, so yeah, then I think then there's like all these consultants. So there's a million, there's literally probably hundreds of different small consulting groups that do custom applications. They say, hey, you want a map? We'll make you the map. Just give us your data, and they'll do everything else. That can be a great option, but it is almost certainly the most expensive option. So just depending on your budget. And so I kind of looked around online, and I'm not trying to highlight anyone except Esri. Esri kind of does everything, so I don't feel bad about saying you know, you could probably work with them to build a map. I think that's not what they do first and foremost. But there's a lot of other smaller shops that are great if you have relationships with them. It's nice to have geospatial expertise. But yeah, just be aware it's kind of expensive. So I kind of put together, we're definitely not going to go through every single point in this list, but we did share this presentation in that map, and we can share it out again for folks in case this is a useful reference for anybody. But just kind of wanted to compare some of the high level kind of components and factors you might consider when you're thinking about, hey, we want an interactive map on our website, but we're not sure which tool to use. This kind of is a summary of some of the main ones. There's definitely a lot more, but in terms of, to reference my previous slide, the kind of tools you can use yourself. I didn't include consultants here because that's pretty obvious, but this just described some of the different tools comparing Felt to Google Maps to ArcGIS Online, Mapbox, Carto, Leaflet, Locate, and Landscape. So yeah, different tools, different pros and cons, really important to understand what you want to achieve. So final kind of takeaway, we're nearing the end and we want to leave time for Q&A. I hope you guys have questions. We would really encourage it. So some takeaways. Felt is an awesome tool for publishing web maps quickly. Being able to iterate and change yourself and update, and then share that content. One tool will likely not solve all your GIS problems. So most people I know working in GIS use a combination of several tools. So Felt might be the one that helps you publish online, but you might use QGIS or ArcMap, ArcPro to do some desktop analysis, which is what Westchester Land Trust is doing. You know, they're publishing, they're working on the desktop, but then publishing just for the kind of final iteration to share on their website onto Felt. And then there are tons of resources out there. I mean, I love this stuff. I think you'll find a lot of people in the GIS space are really passionate. So feel free to have me be a resource. And even if I can't solve your problem, maybe I can point you to it. I won't speak for everyone else's availability, but folks have offered to share certainly their contact info. And so feel free to reach out to us. Obviously, if you have questions specifically about Felt, reach out to Anna or Nora. If you have questions about how Westchester Land Trust did their map, reach out to Genshin or Jess. And then feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or want to learn more about web mapping or GIS for your land trust or conservation org, because there's a lot of great tools out there and happy to share. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I see there's a couple questions in the Q&A, but feel free to also, I'll stop sharing my screen. Feel free to also, I don't know if there's any more Q&A in the chat. Let's look at those from the website. So have you seen other land trust use cases in Felt yet? To be 100% honest, I have not yet. I'm not super plugged in at the moment as much as I want to be. I'd love to get more involved in the land trust scene. But I haven't seen others. So Westchester Land Trust, to my knowledge, is trailblazing and doing awesome work, but clearly room for more to get in. Any tips for working with zoom levels? Well, I mean, that's something web maps do really great, right? Is you can have data that makes sense at different scales. And I like how Felt kind of organizes and makes it pretty intuitive. So you can have those photos that show up only when you're super zoomed in. They're increasingly adding cool functionality to make it possible to change different settings on the zoom level or on your layers so that different things appear at different zoom levels, which is awesome. And then size limit, I have not broken it yet. Maybe that's a question for Nora. But you know, the raster drone layers I added were like 500 plus megabytes. That's a huge data set. So up to 5 gigabytes. That is huge. And then they make it super fast. And so that's one thing again. Yep, go ahead.
We have another interesting question here in the chat. Thank you, Julia, for posting it. Julie is asking, I'm curious to better understand the utility between Felt and ArcGIS Online. Does it feel like it's easier to symbolize or adjust maps in Felt than in ArcGIS Online? Genshin, do you want to take this one?
You know, I don't have as much experience in ArcGIS Online, so I don't know if Ross has more about that, but it just took a little trial and error, and now I have like a write-up of what needs to happen, just the little tweaks. So I could re-upload, I can recreate that whole map in about 5 minutes now because I have gone through it. It took a little while to figure out what the tweaks were to get, you know, like I said, the colors right, the zoom right, just all of those little things, because we wanted the colors to be the right hex colors for our branding and, you know, just all those little things. But yeah, I could get the whole thing re-uploaded and tweaked again in about 5 minutes, but I can't really speak to ArcGIS Online. I really just work on the desktop with it.
Yeah, no, great point. Totally agree, Genshin. I think for me, it's a question around aesthetics. And so I do happen to think that Felt is a lot nicer of an experience for interacting with it. I find ArcGIS Online a little bit like choppy and a little harder to just like quickly make tweaks and a lot more limitations. I mean, it also definitely has some more power, to be totally honest. It does different things. So it's not completely, they're doing the exact same thing. But if you were trying to go from start to beautiful web map, there's, in my opinion, ArcGIS Online could not compete at all. It's a lot harder, slower. I worked for a long time on, it's hard to upload raster data as easily. You need special, I forget, special licensing and things. So just like the amount in different types of data you can quickly combine all together and then create like a really pleasant experience. I think that Felt is much better. I'm a fan of Esri. Esri kind of does everything, which is in itself a great thing, but I've heard people describe Esri as, they do everything, but there's always a company that does something specific better, which I think in this case is totally true, that when it comes to web maps, Felt is just doing it better, but they're much more focused on web maps. Okay, we have
this question about REST services. Nora, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So we support things like Esri map servers and feature servers. So you can upload layers to Felt with a URL. So that might be an option. But if you're also looking to update a Felt map, we also have an API to do that. So let me know if that answers your question. And feel free to, in chat, let me know. Awesome.
Perfect. And we also have this question about how can you utilize tools on Felt to help show trail accessibility? Curious if anyone from this group has an opinion on that.
I think you would need a data set or information about that to be able to show it. So one option, of course, would be to add in the trail info, and then just like quickly you could color it based on accessibility really easily. If you had a attribute in the table that was like you had a trail data set, and then you set trail to easy, medium, or difficult, then you could color it, green, orange, red, and that would be the probably easiest way. If you don't have that data set, but you know about the info, you could just use that data set I use to show the trails, and then like drop in a little emoji or a comment, some text on right next to the trail and say like, this is a hard trail, this is an easy trail, like probably 10 ways to do it really well, and depends on like what data you have availability.
And we have this other question from Raj about before and after visual. I'm not quite sure what is the use case, Raj. Would you be open to unmuting yourself? Yeah.
Go for it, Raj. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for being here, Raj. This is a partner of One Tree Planet for India.
Yay.
I don't know if Raj can unmute himself. Otherwise, I think I can probably respond. It looks like I don't even.
Good
know.
to see you, Ross. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Just trying to get a real-time live before after possibility. You know, and that's something that's been, which I keep talking to you about. If there is a way we could maybe even a week ago or 10 days ago, a real-time before after visual to show what we did 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and I mean, drop this the geotagged photo, like you said. And if there's some way we could show it real time, would be difficult, maybe a week, 10 days ago.
Yeah, I mean, like one option for sure would just be to have the data on there and just the photos right next to each other, and then you can just write some comments right on it. And so I do think this could be a really powerful tool. You could, Raj, we could have a follow-up. I'll be happy to chat with you, but quickly you could, drag the photos and just kind of keep it to, a very select level or number of photos, and then just write the date under it and just say, hey, here's from 2020, 2021, 2022, and just show progression right on the map. Kind of like I showed on my map, you could just have them right there and just a little explanation. And then if you have drone layers, sort of like I did, that's another way to show is by, having the layer appear in and out by toggling the visibility on or off. You can have the drone layers stack on top of each other. But for just photos, you could easily have them all on the map and just have the explanation.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah. For sure. Let's happy to chat more about that. That'd be great to.
Yes, we need to, like I keep telling you, we need to get this Truman Show kind of a video or, stuff happening across so that people really know real time as to what we did and how those trees are growing.
Exactly. No, you could easily update photos once a week and then share out a link to the map. It'd be really easy to drop the photo on there, write a very quick description and say, hey, here's the update from this week.
That would be 50 million photos.
Well, you're gonna have to pick the top 10.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, the question that I was trying to, really get to, Ross, if I can take a minute, please, is there some way we could tie up with all the satellite imagery that's going on and do a real-time play on that? I'm sure it'll happen over a couple of years' time. But is there a solution that is possible, maybe a little expensive, but for larger organizations who don't mind paying the cost, is something available at the moment?
I think Felt's interaction with satellite data is not their primary use case. You could definitely bring satellite data into Felt, but there are other companies that specialize specifically on satellite data. So yeah, let's continue that conversation. Maybe we can connect next week. And happy to
We will do that.
Sort of see where you're at.
We will do that. We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. And yeah, we work with satellite data, and you can use raster data or like satellite imagery in Felt and annotate it. But yeah, excited to see how you guys solve for it, or how you can explore this use case further. Well, I'm really grateful for all the questions. I want to pause and see if anyone didn't post a question but has a question and wants to unmute themselves, so we can maybe take 2-3 more questions until 10 a.m. So we have six minutes. So I'll pause here.
And feel free to follow up with us after as well. You saw our contact info. Happy to chat with anyone who's interested in land conservation and mapping. It's really fun stuff.